The more you look closely at this trailer, the more it becomes clear that the creators are not simply teasing another season of conflict. They are building towards something much more emotional, something that could completely transform Beth and Rip as characters. Because the biggest question surrounding season 2 is not just whether Carter survives. The bigger question is what happens to the Dutton family if he doesn't. We have watched this family lose people before. We have seen them suffer betrayals, violence, and heartbreaking sacrifices. But Carter's situation feels different because he represents something they rarely get in their world: innocence. He was not born into this war. He was not raised around power, revenge, and bloodshed. He was just a kid looking for somewhere to belong, and Beth and Rip became the first people who truly gave him that chance. That is why the possibility of losing him carries so much weight. It would not just be the loss of a family member. It would be the destruction of the one piece of hope they managed to create in a world built on survival. And the trailer seems to understand that emotional importance because every shot involving Beth and Rip feels heavier than anything we saw in season 1. There is a moment where Rip is shown preparing his weapons in complete silence. Normally, a scene like this would represent preparation. It would tell the audience that Rip is getting ready for a fight and that the enemy should be afraid. But this time, the feeling is completely different. There is no confidence. There is no satisfaction. There is only a man preparing himself for something he knows he may not come back from. Rip Wheeler has always been someone who hides his emotions behind action. He does not talk about pain. He does not explain his fears. He simply carries them. But the trailer gives us small glimpses of a different side of him. A side where the anger is not covering pain anymore. The pain is finally visible. And if Carter is truly gone, then Rip will not just be fighting Mariano Reyes. He will be fighting the emptiness left behind by losing the son he never expected to have. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the trailer is the way it presents Beth. Because Beth Dutton's revenge has always been personal. But this time it feels different. Throughout her entire life, Beth has been fighting battles against people who tried to take something from her. Her father, her family name, her home, her future. But Carter represents something she chose. Something she protected because she wanted to, not because she was forced to. And that changes everything. If Mariano Reyes believes kidnapping Carter will weaken Beth, he may have completely misunderstood who she is. Because Beth does not become weaker when she loses something she loves. She becomes more dangerous. The trailer gives us several moments where Beth appears almost unrecognizable. She is not the sarcastic, confident woman who destroys enemies with words. She is quieter, colder, more focused. And that silence might be the most frightening version of Beth we have ever seen. Because when Beth stops talking, people should start worrying. There is also another detail in the trailer that fans have been analyzing, and it involves the strange way the footage is edited around Carter. Normally, when a show wants to convince audiences that a character is safe, they highlight that character. They give them emotional moments. They show their strength. They create a connection between the audience and the character before the season begins. But Carter is almost treated like a mystery. He appears in fragments, almost like a memory. Almost like someone the other characters are trying desperately to hold on to. And that editing choice has created a theory that the trailer may not be showing us Carter's journey during the events of season 2. It may actually be showing us the aftermath of something that already happened. That possibility changes the entire meaning of the trailer. Because instead of Beth and Rip racing against time to save him, they could already be dealing with the consequences of losing him. And if that is true, then season 2 could begin with one of the darkest openings this franchise has ever delivered. Imagine the emotional impact of seeing Rip Wheeler, the man who survived everything, standing in silence because there is nothing left to fight for. Imagine Beth Dutton, the woman who always finds a way forward, finally facing a loss that cannot be fixed with money, power, or revenge. That is the kind of storyline that would push both characters into completely unknown territory. But there is another character whose role could become extremely important this season: Beulah Jackson. In the trailer, Beulah appears different from the powerful, confident figure we met before. She looks uncertain, almost afraid. And that is something we rarely see from her. Beulah has always operated like someone who believes she can control every situation. She understands power. She understands enemies. She understands the cost of protecting an empire. But Carter's situation seems to remind her of something she cannot control: consequences. Because no matter how powerful someone becomes, there are certain lines that cannot be crossed without creating enemies who are impossible to stop. And Beulah may realize that Mariano Reyes has created exactly that kind of enemy. Beth and Rip were already dangerous before Carter was taken, but after this, they may become something far worse. The trailer also gives us more mystery surrounding Walken, whose connection to Mariano raises even more questions. His character has always existed in a complicated space between loyalty and morality. He understands the world he comes from, but he also appears uncomfortable with the darkness surrounding him. And that conflict could become one of the most interesting parts of Season 2. Because if Mariano gives the order that changes everything, will Walken follow it? Or will he finally turn against the family he was born into? The trailer appears to intentionally keep his role unclear. We see moments where he looks like someone trapped by circumstances rather than someone controlling them. And if Carter's fate is connected to his choices, then Walken could become one of the most tragic characters in the entire story. But perhaps the most disturbing clue comes from the overall tone of the trailer itself. Every major franchise trailer tries to sell excitement, but this one feels like a funeral announcement disguised as an action preview. The music is heavier. The characters look more broken. The conversations feel less like promises of victory and more like preparations for war. Even the locations tell a story. The burning ranch, the dark landscapes, the empty spaces between characters. Everything suggests that something has changed forever. And that may be the real mystery of Dutton Ranch Season 2. Maybe the question is not whether Carter survives. Maybe the real question is who Beth and Rip become after they believe they have lost him. Because revenge can destroy the person seeking it just as easily as the person receiving it. And if this trailer is any indication, Season 2 may be the moment where the Duttons finally discover the price of their endless war. But the deeper you look into the trailer, the more it feels like Carter's disappearance is only the beginning of something much larger. Because Mariano Reyes may believe he has taken control of the situation, but history has shown one thing about the Dutton family. The moment someone thinks they have defeated them is usually the exact moment they make their biggest mistake. And if Mariano has truly crossed the line by hurting Carter, then he may have created an enemy far more dangerous than he ever expected. The question is not whether Beth and Rip will come after him. The question is how much of themselves they are willing to destroy to make sure he pays. That is what makes this conflict so terrifying. This is no longer a battle over land, money, or power. This is a battle fueled by loss. And a person who has nothing left to lose is often the most dangerous person in the room. Throughout the trailer, there is a feeling that Beth and Rip are not chasing victory anymore. They are chasing justice in the only way they know how. But the problem with revenge is that it rarely brings back what was taken. It only creates more destruction. And that could become the emotional heart of Season 2. Because for all the violence and chaos surrounding this family, the real story has always been about broken people trying to protect the few things that still matter to them. Carter was one of those things. He was proof that the cycle could be broken. He was proof that the Dutton legacy did not have to only be built on pain and sacrifice. Losing him would mean losing the possibility of a different future. And that is why fans are looking so closely at every frame of this trailer. There is one particular moment that has caused massive speculation. We see Beth entering what appears to be a quiet room. The atmosphere feels completely different from the rest of the trailer. There are no weapons, no confrontation, no shouting, just silence. And behind her, there appears to be an object that some fans believe could be connected to Carter. It is impossible to confirm exactly what it means, but the placement of the shot feels intentional. It appears right before Beth begins talking about making someone pay for what happened. And when trailers place emotional images next to revenge dialogue, they are usually trying to create a connection in the viewer's mind. The question is whether they are revealing a hidden clue or simply playing with expectations. Because one thing we know about these shows is that they love misleading audiences. They know fans analyze every second of footage. They know people freeze frames, study background details, and build theories. And sometimes the most obvious explanation is exactly what they want you to believe before pulling the rug out from underneath you. That is why Carter's fate remains such a mystery. There is strong evidence suggesting something terrible happened, but there is also a possibility that this is all a carefully designed emotional trap. Perhaps Carter survives. Perhaps Mariano believes he has won, only for Beth and Rip to turn the entire situation against him. Perhaps the trailer is intentionally making fans believe the worst, because the real story is about Carter returning stronger than ever. But even if Carter survives, the emotional damage may already be done. Because being kidnapped by someone like Mariano Reyes changes a person. Carter was already carrying pain before season 2 began. He had lost his parents. He had experienced abandonment. He had finally found a home with Beth and Rip. Taking him away from that safety could create wounds that do not disappear simply because he is rescued. And that could become one of the most interesting storylines of the season. Not just whether Carter comes back, but who he becomes after everything he has been through. Will he still be the same hopeful kid who wanted a family? Or will the violence surrounding the Duttons finally change him into someone who understands the world they live in? That question could define his entire future. Another major clue comes from the way the trailer presents Mariano Reyes. He is not shown as someone desperate. He is not shown as someone struggling. He looks completely in control. And that is terrifying because characters like Mariano rarely act without a larger plan. Kidnapping Carter may not have been about revenge alone. It may have been a calculated move designed to break the Dutton family from the inside.